I am back. Don't worry.
Hello.
Sorry about that.
I missed it. I'm sorry.
It's all good. My system crashed. Hey everybody, welcome to this. Welcome to this Zero Touch Automation SAP Business Benefits stream. My name is Brenton O'Callaghan, and I'm the Chief Customer Officer here at Avantra. And I'm delighted to be joined once again by Mr. Tyler Constable. Hey Tyler, how you doing?
I'm wonderful. My system seems to be working, so it seems to be okay.
Well, unlike me, so for context for those who are watching, we were just discussing the fact that I have a giant storm here where I'm based in Cork in Ireland, and we were joking about the fact that I might disappear, and then my browser crashed. So I just, scaring you a little bit, Tyler, just to make sure that I was disappearing just before the appropriate moment.
It's not a live webinar without something going wrong.
Exactly. What could possibly go wrong? But no, thank you everybody for joining us. So we're going to speak for about 15, 20, 25 minutes, depending on how many questions we get and how many topics we want to cover. If you do have questions, we really would love to hear them. Please feel free to either DM us if you are on one of our social channels, or put them in one of the question boxes here on Bright Talk, and we'll be happily able to cover those. So today we're going to cover three main areas. The first one being business benefits. So Tyler, you hosted one of these probably back, it was late January, 27th of January, I think, if memory serves, covering the real technical aspects of zero touch automation. And it was a fantastic session, and you did some great demos. But some of the questions and the feedback that came back was, this is fantastic, but how do I sell it to the business? And I thought that was a great question. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover some of those business benefits in real terms. So talk about the actual benefits that that the business folks would see. What is the cost to the business? And I don't mean cost of purchasing the platform or implementing automation. I mean, what's the actual time cost? What is where are they going to have to commit time and spend to make this happen? And then, Tyler, I think the last thing we'll touch on is the specialized skills, right? So that's in the business, but also in the technical team. Is that correct?
Yep, sounds good.
Excellent. So let's go ahead and get started. So business benefit in real terms. So I was thinking about this over the last few days, and kind of one of the big things that popped into my mind is freed up time. I think, but actually, even before we go there, why don't we touch on a definition of what zero touch automation is? So why don't you take us through that one, Tyler, and then I can interject with counterpoints.
Yeah. So I guess first we got to go back even further. I think in automation, in the sense of SAP specific IT operations, has not been something that has been kind of accepted until recently. I think a lot of that has to do with architecture and how people are starting to see the benefits of public clouds. And they're also starting to see that it's not just forklifting your SAP workloads on top of a public cloud, but it's how to rethink that architecture. And people then start to see how things can scale, which then leads to cost savings and how you scale at the right times. And that's really where this, I think, the momentum is starting to go here. And then people then start to think a bit more. They start to rethink everything. Like, okay, well, maybe we can rerun batch jobs when things fail. And that's a simple example, but run some scripts to do different things. And all of a sudden the world is now opened up in the SAP world. And I think people are starting to see that now. So when we talk specifically around zero touch though, and what the last presentation was about, was really about those specific items that I kind of focus on, let's say, the non-approval parts of that. So for a lot of businesses, automation still requires approval, and that's okay. That still kind of makes sense, right? You don't want to necessarily declare disaster recovery unless you absolutely know what's going on. Then you can click a button and then let your system go and take that automation to do that. But there are some areas where you don't need approval, and let the automation just run. And so I think that's what the zero touch automation was. I think a lot of what we're going to talk about today even goes just beyond all automation, really. But agreed. Discussion was specifically around zero touch. So that's what zero touch automation is. And again, it's becoming something that's really well versed in the SAP world.
And I think you hit on so many great points there. And I think to kind of bring it down to the simplest possible explanation, if you're talking about zero touch automation, it's something that can run end to end automatically in specific scenarios without any human involvement. Is that a fair summary of what we're talking about here?
That's exactly it. Yeah, I think you nailed it right on the head. Yeah, that's exactly
right. And actually, because I got a couple of questions through social before this session, and one of them was, well, hold on a second. Are you talking about zero touch automation where hey, everything becomes automated in your landscape out of the box, and that's quite a scary prospect for people, isn't it? Because they feel like they're losing control, and that's that's not what people want. It's so it's not that. It's really around what specific scenarios could be automated within the business, and you don't actually need to approve them to run. They can just go and do their thing, and it's not going to measurably impact the business if it runs at the wrong time or whatever the case may be. So I thought it was always good to start with a definition, so we're speaking about the same thing. And for me, one of the main business benefits, and as you say, it links just to automation itself, but specifically to zero-touch automation, are those scenarios that you will no longer have to worry about. So I think one of the ones you and I've discussed many times, Tyler, is this extra load on a system. So, it could be month end, it could be year end, and, we really don't need the system to be slow or going down at that time. It's critical that the business is able to function. So having a zero-touch automation in place that will automatically add extra capacity to the system so the users never even know that there's extra load on the system at that time, that to me is a fantastic use case that frees up time of the operations folks to not have to worry about it. And it frees up the time of the business folks because they're not dealing with a slow system. That to me is one of my favorite zero-touch automation use cases. What about you? Have you got a favorite?
Well, just on that note too, and I think touch on that too, is we all know that when that scenario, when that occurs without automation at all, is going to occur when you're at your kid's football game. It's going to occur
definitely
when you're at a family dinner or something like that. That's just the way it always works.
Right. Oh. Absolutely. Or it's 6 p.m. on a Friday night and it's your wife's birthday and you get the page and you're like, oh no, sorry, honey. I got to go deal with this. And it again, if it's about freeing up time, isn't it? You don't need to worry about it. These are the business as usual tasks that, and by the way, there is a downside to this. If you get this right, the business will neither care nor want to invest in it, because it's doing it so well, they don't feel it's necessary. That's always, I mean, it's a great challenge to have, but it's also a challenge in itself. How do you keep the business wanting more when they get used to it? It just becomes, of course, we always had that. What do I need to invest in that for?
Isn't that general just IT operations? Isn't that just the way that if you're doing such an awesome job, like you don't hear from anyone and that's it. As soon as you admit something, you hear about it. So
someone just said there that sounds like we're talking from experience just a little bit on that one. So keep the questions coming, by the way, folks. If you do have something you want us to talk about, please let us know. So the next one on my list, Tyler, was security from a zero-touch automation standpoint, because I think that, if you take some of the stuff that's happened in the news recently, big hacks, systems not being kept up to date, I feel like this is becoming, if it wasn't already, a huge topic for businesses that they're worried about. It's the stuff that keeps, the CISO up at night. So zero-touch automation can play a big part in this space, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, just imagine being able to patch your system. If there's some kind of patch that comes out that's security related, and being able to automatically have that in place, not have to, again, get approval, disrupt your day, take everything away from you. The key point here too is at the end of the automation, or even before it starts, even though you may not have to approve it or do whatever, you still should be notified that, hey, this is about to occur. Right. And then afterwards, hey, that this has occurred and everything's back up and running. So this isn't just, flying blind. But yeah, that's a great point, Brenton, is security, and specifically in the SAP world, there's so much critical data in those systems. Being able to make sure that they are nice and secure is not something we should have to wait for human interaction to do.
Right, and there's actually a related question just come in there saying, is something like that. So let's take this scenario where we want to keep our systems secure, we want to keep them up to date, want to keep the business functioning, and we want to automate all of this. Is that easier or harder in the cloud is the question that's come in, which I think is a great question. What's your perspective?
Great point. So from a cybersecurity perspective, I think, it's going to be completely different than what you may have on-prem. When you get specifically into the basis world from the SAP world of like kernels and all that, I don't know if there's a huge difference there. But those are pretty much the same if you're talking on-premise or up in a IaaS public cloud or infrastructure as a service public cloud.
Right, and that would be kind of my feedback as well. If you're talking about zero-touch automations, realistically, if you're talking about business benefit creating automations, you're talking about automating business processes. You're talking about automating the systems that sit under those. It doesn't really matter where the system sits. Realistically, if you could do it on-premise, you can probably do it in the cloud. Personally, I would think it might be a little bit easier in the cloud because then you can start to integrate with some really cool APIs that your cloud provider might offer, or for example, like our platform, you can use some of the built-in automations to start and stop systems and all this kind of stuff. So I think that element might be easier in the cloud, but it always depends on the scenario. Would be how I would answer that one.
And Brenton, I just want to tack on more about the security aspect. This is relevant for security and non-security. But when something comes in that is a high security alert that needs to be patched immediately, I can't remember where that comes in. Is it SAP's hotfix 10 or something like that?
Hot news.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So something like that, obviously it's drop everything and go do it. If you're going to do it, drop everything, go do it. Now, what that can often lead to is, inconsistency and all that. It could lead to, maybe not following your SOPs correctly and just kind of getting in there. So by automating this, you're really focusing on accuracy. You're focusing on consistency, and that goes outside of security too, right? I mean, just anything for automation, you're really focusing on consistency over and over again. Yeah. As much as we can be all really good at our stuff, it's just sometimes something else is in your mind and you actually click the wrong thing. I mean, we're all humans. It happens.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Another one from experience. I don't think there's a basis engineer on the planet who hasn't hit the wrong button at some point and gone, oh no. But the stories, but that's for a different webcast. Awesome. I think we kind of covered the security one. The final one I really wanted to mention, which I think is the obvious one, is cost savings. So if you're taking some of these scenarios, whether it be, hey, we want to make sure the system stays up or it performs fast and we're adding capacity, or whatever scenario you choose to use, ultimately you're freeing up time to do more beneficial things for your business. So you don't have to worry about it. So you can focus on the things that will actually move the needle. If they'll bring in revenue, they'll focus on customers, whatever the case may be. So there is a cost saving to be had, even in time alone, not to mind a cost saving in the logistics of what you're actually doing, whether it be implementing patches or, suddenly you're bringing down the time to achieve that. But there is cost savings to be had, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hit on a couple things there, but even just if we just talk again, I know we've talked a lot about public clouds, but even just from that perspective, being able to not have to run with, full workload, tons of app servers and all that stuff from a business perspective. You don't have to run a full steam. You can keep things scaled back. You can even get pretty crazy and have, some of those systems scale back in throughout the day, depending on, if you're not a global company that needs everything 24/7. You can really do a lot there, and that can save significant amount of cloud costs. I mean, just think about it. Being able to bring down 2/3 of your systems every weekend or even every night. I mean, that can be a significant amount of savings there.
Absolutely. And as well, if you do your automation implementation right, you can still retain the flexibility to do what you need to do as a business. I had a customer conversation this week where he was telling me about they had implemented a nice little web page that folks could go to if they really needed the system on a Saturday. And if they hit a button, the system will spin up and it literally would say, go make a cup of coffee. By the time you get back, the system will be up. Now, the folks that were using this know nothing about how to switch on systems or the complexities required. They just knew they needed an ability to say, I need the system in about 10 minutes. Off they went, made their cup of coffee, came back, and the system was available. So they retained that flexibility, which is very important. And didn't kind of stop themselves from innovating at weekends, for example, by saying, oh, all these systems must be shut down automatically at the weekend. So I thought that was a really cool story and a great, there's obviously a touch automation there that they hit the button, but the point is it was still end user instigated. So it is zero touch.
Right. Think about it from the technical side or from the SAP, the basic person that would usually have to do it. they don't want to automate themselves into more work, right? They don't have to automate themselves.
Exactly.
They can on Saturday going to start the system. So,
yeah, by putting in this automation, I now guaranteed a phone call every Saturday and Sunday for the next 2 years. No, let's not do that.
Yeah,
yeah, great point.
Speaking of employees, though, too. So I
actually
was reading a very interesting study recently that a lot of people think, okay, if I put in automation, am I just going to automate myself out of a job? And what this study actually focused on is the majority of enterprises actually found ones that focus on automation have less employee churn. The reason why is because they're taking those mundane tasks and they're removing them. And then the employees can then focus on, things that are more rewarding and more challenging, which leads to happier employees, which leads to less employee churn. And this was such an awesome study. I thought this is really cool. And it's completely different than what everyone thinks. I'm going to automate myself out of a job. It's really not the case. You're going to automate yourself into possibly being happier at work. Yeah,
because I mean, who doesn't like playing with the newest, shiniest tech? And I've had exactly the same conversation with folks as well, where they say, oh, I didn't really want to go down the automation route, but now that we have, I have a little bit of extra time, and this one guy was talking to me, he was able to focus on upskilling in a new tool. In this case, it was Ansible, but he was able to actually explore and upskill himself, and he absolutely massively improved his love of his job, which he had previously had. But you get into a rut, you're doing the same things over and over again, and that can be quite hard. So that's fascinating. Not surprising, but it's lovely to see it written down, because yes, I agree with this. Now we've had another question come in, so I'm going to read it. I haven't read it fully yet, but because it's quite a long one. Is there a getting up to speed issue here? The more an automated tool does before it throws the unfinished task to the operator, the more work the operator has to do to understand the problem and launch a response. Okay, so I think that's kind of when when automations go wrong, and I feel like that's the title of a podcast or something like that. But it sounds like there's an element here of someone has to unpick it if something goes wrong. Is that a major cost? What's your experience on that?
No, absolutely. And this is something we talk about when Avantra talk with customers that we're kind of introducing them to the world of automation in the SAP world. Is there is a trust factor that comes into play initially. And it's kind of like, well, is this actually going to work? Is this just going to cause me to have to sit here and just watch this thing happen now? And so I think, I think the question was framed more of, is this going to be something that's going to be learning? But I think really when it comes down to it, it really is a trust issue with the automation. So yeah, I think initially there is, once people see that automation occur, whether that is patching of a kernel, whether it's starting and stopping systems, whether it's running scripts to do something, yeah, absolutely. But way you can get around that is, again, we talked about this a little bit earlier, kind of breeze past it, but make sure that you have some kind of notification saying, hey, this automation is occurring. And then something after saying, hey, it has occurred, it has worked.
Yeah.
So yes, the first couple of times you might watch it and just for your own curiosity, did it actually work? Boom, yes, it did. And then all of a sudden now you get a little bit, you have a little bit more trust, and then you start to watch these text messages come out saying something's about to occur. You go, okay, at least it's occurring now. I get it. And eventually you might just turn those notifications off and just go, okay, I'll just check it out in the morning. So yeah, I think it's really a trust issue. Brendan, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that, but
no, I think you're absolutely right. And I know that whenever I put an automation in place, it's definitely, it's on one of my monitors. I'm keeping an eye on it just to make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do. So I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head there. And at the end of the day, going back to the fact that we're freeing up time to do the things that will matter to the business, we're not taking away the people who know how to do this. They're still there. It's just suddenly they're not being pulled in to do this every day or every week or every month. They're only pulled in when they're required. And that to me falls into the category of when they're required, because it's IT. Not everything works every time, let's face it. So that's still got to be present in your knowledge base, in your tribal knowledge within the team. But it's just not got to be exercised every day. And that's one of the benefits. Again, going back to the business benefit, and I want to keep not going into the technical too much and linking it back to the business benefit here. It's imagine what that person who knows how to do that is doing with their free time now that has been automated. So it might run perfectly 100 times, and the 101st time, yeah, there's a problem and they have to go fix it because something changed. But the other 100 times, they've been able to spend their time on innovation projects or supporting the business in growth opportunities. And that is the massive business benefit I feel in these zero touch automation scenarios.
Yeah, absolutely. And keeping those employees happy means less churn, which means,
Exactly.
I can't remember what this study is, but essentially, hiring a new employee takes this much more effort than retaining an employee.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and they're taking time to learn, get certified on things which are going to make the projects go smoother. Obviously, that's a ton of business impact there. So yeah, it's like a domino effect.
Completely. So our second major topic, so we that was kind of the business benefit in real terms. So the time savings, the cost savings, the security elements as a good example. That list really is quite endless, but I want to move on from it a little bit and talk about the business cost for adoption. So obviously, when you're embarking on an automation journey, if you're not already on one, there is a certain cost to getting up to speed, maybe getting a platform in place, and making sure you have the foundational elements for achieving automation. There's a time cost too, right? And let's be absolutely upfront here. We're not saying that zero-touch automation and automation in general will just happen with little impact to the business. There is analysis required, in my view, of what are the areas that would really benefit the business, and making sure you pick those scenarios that will obviously improve the lives of the people you want to improve the lives of. So I feel like that is a cost up front, but you reap the rewards later on. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anyone that's been in the SAP world for more than 3 years knows that every SAP landscape at every organization is completely different.
Completely.
So it would be next to impossible to just be plug and play and have everything automated, right? So there's going to be that upfront cost to automate the specifics around your organization. And like Brenton said, let's just be honest, that it's going to take a little bit of time and effort to get there. However, in the long run, that you'll see that savings tenfold, back.
And I've had many of these conversations where you walk into the room with the business users and you say, right, guys, tell me, what is the most frustrating thing about working with the thing you work with? Guaranteed, they'll kind of stop for a while and they'll go, I have to think about that. And then give it about 3 minutes and suddenly they're spouting issue after issue after issue. And you start writing these down and plotting them on okay, how much time would that save you? What's the value of this one? You're going to end up with 2 or 3 use cases that will significantly improve their lives. And if you get to walk back into that room a week later and say, guys, we have a proposal for how we're going to automate this so you'll never have to worry about it again, I guarantee they're going to get excited. Not only are they going to get excited, they're going to become advocates for future automation, which isn't that the point? And it does bring me onto one of my hobby horses. I apologize. But I do feel like if we can transform the way we think, and this is kind of speaking to the skills portion of what we said we would talk about, if we can transform the way we think into an automation first thought process, I think that would be fantastic. So that we're not creating manual processes or processes that have human interactions when they really don't need it. I feel like that, if we can shift that, would be fantastic.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And so one that, Brenton, you were just talking about getting everyone in the room and kind of really diving in deep. One of the things that we do is what's called this operations workshop. We go in, and it's definitely that, what are your biggest problems, but it's also uncovering the things that we don't think about because they're so mundane and we're just so used to always doing. This is the way we've always done it. We all know.
Oh, yeah. I love that phrase.
But in reality, there's always something like, it's 3 o'clock every day. I go look at the backups. Okay, who cares? Like, well, obviously it's important, right? Or I go restart this, but okay, let's not do that anymore. And it's unearthing those things, and that's where you're going to see, and kind of bleeding into the skills. Then you can take that and start to work on, the skills needed to automate that, and then obviously what you can gain after that as well.
But at that point, you're in the right problem place to you have the right problems at that point. You're asking yourself, how can I do that? Because now you understand the real pain points of the business users. Now you can start to really figure out how you can make their lives better. And you may not be able to achieve total automation immediately. Maybe they may insist on doing certain parts manually for legacy reasons to start with, but you can definitely take bites of that apple and start to really show them and gain their trust, to go to your point earlier on, start to gain trust in the concept of taking big portions of their day and automating them so that they can focus on the right stuff. What the last thing on my list for today, link to the skills. Talk to me about the operations team skills. Where is there investment required from the business there, or is it kind of a self-learn? Hey, just do the research, figure out what your automation platform is capable of. Like, for example, there's Avantra, mastering Avantra videos, just shameless self-plug. What would be your advice there for folks who want to get their operations teams upskilled in the automation world? Oh, seem to have an issue with Tyler's connection or my connection, one of the two. So, all right, we will come back to that another time. But the honest answer to this one is getting your folks with freed up time to start researching into some of these automation tools, automation platforms is an absolute must to start to get them thinking about how they can move forward with automation in your business. Well, that's it from us. It was coming to the end of our time anyway. So thank you very much for joining us on this business benefit focused session around zero touch automation. Catch you on the next one. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.